Picture a parking garage on a Monday morning, level 2. In the first spot sits a brand new German sedan, gloss black, chrome wheels, the lease badge still in the window. 3 spots down sits a 12-year-old Civic with faded paint, a parking sticker from 2 jobs ago, and a library book on the passenger seat. Now, if I asked you which driver has money, you already answered. You answered before I finished the sentence. Everyone does. Here is the uncomfortable part. Statistically, you are probably wrong. The driver of that German sedan is more likely to be one missed paycheck from panic, juggling a payment, insurance, and a credit card balance that never goes down. The driver of the Civic is more likely to have 6 figures quietly compounding in accounts you will never see. So how did we end up in a world where looking rich and being rich are not just different, they are usually opposites? That question is this entire video. Because the math behind it is brutal, almost nobody shows it to you, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what looking rich costs, down to the dollar. You will see the real number hiding behind a $700 car payment, and I promise it is not $700. And you will get the exact playbook that quietly wealthy people use instead. Let's start with your own brain, because the first thing to understand is why you answered that parking garage question so fast. It is not because you are shallow, it is because you are human, and humans have been reading status signals for as long as we have existed. 10,000 years ago, the signal was the size of your harvest, the number of animals you kept, the shells and beads you could trade. Status reading was survival software. Knowing who held resources told you who to ally with, who to trade with, who could protect your family through a bad winter. Your brain still runs that software today. It just points it at cars and sneakers now. And for most of human history, the software worked because signals were almost impossible to fake. In ancient Rome, purple dye was so rare and so expensive that a single pound of it cost more than most people earned in a year, and Roman law literally restricted who was allowed to wear it. There were rules, written rules, about who could wear silk, who could wear fur, who could wear gold. Why would governments bother regulating clothing? Because everyone understood that the display and the wealth were the same thing. If you wore it, you had it. The costume could not lie. In the late 1800s, an economist named Thorstein Veblen gave this behavior a name that stuck: conspicuous consumption. Spending not for the thing itself, but for what the thing announces. He noticed that as societies got richer, more and more spending stopped being about comfort or function and became pure broadcast, a way of shouting, without words, "I am winning." And then, a few decades later, a newspaper comic strip gave us the phrase we still use, Keeping Up with the Joneses, about a family endlessly chasing their neighbor's lifestyle. The Joneses, by the way, never actually appear in the strip. That detail is almost too perfect. The audience you are performing for is imaginary. Then, in the 20th century, something broke the entire system. Credit happened, financing happened, leasing happened, and for the first time in human history, the signal and the substance came apart. Today, anyone can drive a $70,000 car with $0 of actual wealth behind it. Anyone can wear a $3,000 bag that was paid for in 12 installments at 29% interest. The costume of wealth, the exact thing Roman law said could not be faked, became available for rent to anyone overnight. And the moment that happened, the signal stopped, meaning what your brain still thinks it means. Your eyes are running ancient software on a modern scam. And the scam has never been louder because social media took the audience for your status display, which used to be your street, your church, your office, and multiplied it by 10,000. 100 years ago, you performed wealth for 30 neighbors. Today, you perform it for everyone you have ever met, plus strangers. Every hour of the day, with a comparison feed in your pocket showing you, on a loop, everyone living louder than you. The pressure to look successful has never been higher, at the exact moment in history when looking successful has never meant less. Hold that thought, because now we get to the chapter, nobody shows you. The actual numbers. And I want to warn you, the first number is going to sound normal. That is exactly the problem. The average new car payment in America is now over $700 a month, not for luxury cars, on average. Stretch to the entry-level luxury badge, the one that gets you the logo in the parking garage, and you are easily at $900 or $1,000. Now, add what comes attached to the badge, insurance priced for the badge, premium fuel, premium maintenance, premium repairs. A routine brake job on a German luxury sedan can cost what an entire year of maintenance costs on that Civic. Most people look at all of this and ask exactly one question: can I make the payment? And that is the wrong question. It is the question the dealership trained you to ask. The right question is, what is this payment doing to my future self? Because here is what the sticker never shows. Money you spend does not just leave. It leaves and takes its entire future with it. Run the numbers with me. This is the only math in this video, and it is worth pausing for. $750 a month invested instead in a boring, unsexy index fund earning historical average returns becomes roughly $130,000 in 10 years. Keep going for 20 years. One career, one stretch of ordinary discipline, and it is over $400,000. $400,000. That is not a typo, and it is not a trick. It is just compound growth, doing what it always does to consistent money. So that sedan in the parking garage did not cost $50,000. It cost $400,000. The dealer just never prints the real number on the window sticker, because nobody would sign. And it gets worse because most people never even finish paying for the car. They lease it or they trade it in after 3 or 4 years, right after absorbing the steepest part of the loss. A new car sheds roughly 20% of its value in the first year and around half by year 5. When you buy new and trade early, you are volunteering for the exact years when the car burns value fastest, over and over, forever. The industry even has a polite phrase for rolling your leftover loan into the next car: negative equity. Think about what that means. People are paying monthly, with interest, for cars they no longer own, stacked under cars losing value while they drive them. That is not transportation. That is a wealth shredder with seat warmers. But let's be fair, the car is just the loudest example. The same machine runs quietly through the whole looking rich lifestyle. Take housing, the extra bedroom you bought for guests who visit twice a year, the extra 500 square feet because the smaller place felt like a step down. That upgrade is not just a slightly bigger mortgage. It is a bigger down payment, bigger interest, bigger property tax, bigger insurance, more furniture, more heating, more cooling, more cleaning. Easily $1,000 to $1,500 a month, every month, for rooms that mostly store boxes. Take the wardrobe refresh every season, the watch that costs a month of investing, the phone upgrade every single year for a camera improvement you genuinely cannot see. None of these decisions feels catastrophic alone. That is the trick. Looking rich is never one purchase. It is a subscription, a recurring compounding tax on your appearance, call it the appearance tax, and it silently collects the exact dollars that were supposed to set you free. Let me make this concrete with 2 couples. The names are invented. The pattern is everywhere. Jordan and Casey earn $200,000 a year combined. Tech job, marketing job, the works. 2 leased SUVs in the driveway, $1,800 a month between them. A 3,400 square foot house because their realtor said they qualified for it. Restaurants and delivery, $1,200 a month because who has time to cook? Vacations that match their feed. After 10 years of working, 20 incomes worth of years, their net worth is negative $40,000. Student loans, car balances, credit cards, and a mortgage that is mostly interest so far. $200,000 a year, and they are worth less than nothing. Now, meet the second couple, a nurse and a mechanic, $110,000 combined, paid off cars they have driven for 9 years, a house that is enough, bought under what the bank offered. They invest first, automatically, and live on what remains. Same city, same decade. Their net worth, over $300,000 and climbing. The couple earning almost twice as much is a decade behind, possibly forever behind. Because wealth was never about the size of the income, it is about the gap between income and ego. There is one more cost of looking rich, and it is crueler than the money. Every dollar of appearance spending also buys you an audience you now have to keep performing for. Upgrade the car, and suddenly the watch looks old next to it. Upgrade the watch, and the vacations need to keep up. Researchers call it the hedonic treadmill. Each upgrade becomes the new normal within months, and the thrill resets to zero. But the street version is simpler. Looking rich is a race with no finish line, where the prize for winning a lap is a more expensive next lap. You cannot win, you can only quit. And the quitting, as you are about to see, is where the actual wealth begins. So if appearances lie, what tells the truth? One number: net worth. Everything you own minus everything you owe. That is the whole formula. It does not care what your car looks like. It does not care what your followers assume. It cannot be leased, financed, or filtered. It is the single most honest number in your financial life, and most people have never once calculated it because we were trained from childhood to measure ourselves by what shows instead of what counts. Income shows, lifestyle shows, net worth counts. And the gap between what shows and what counts is where almost everyone gets fooled, including, and especially, about themselves. Because here is what the data has shown for decades. Every single time, researchers actually study wealthy households instead of photographing them. The most famous study of American millionaires found that the majority of them had never in their lives spent more than around $40,000 on a car. Most drove ordinary sedans, several years old, bought sensibly. They lived in middle-class neighborhoods, often in the same modest house for 20 or 30 years, surrounded by neighbors who earned more and kept less. Most were first-generation wealthy. No inheritance, no lottery. Teachers, engineers, small business owners, accountants, people whose superpower was a boring, repeated gap between what they earned and what they performed. Meanwhile, the researchers found the opposite group everywhere. High-income professionals in expensive zip codes, doctors, lawyers, executives, earning fortunes and keeping almost nothing, because the neighborhood, the cars, the schools, and the image consumed it all. They even coined a phrase for it: big hat, no cattle. Rich on paper, broke in the bank account. Wealth, it turns out, is not what you see. Wealth is precisely the part you cannot see. It is the part that was never converted into objects. I knew a retired schoolteacher, a friend of my family, who drove the same compact car for over 20 years and wore the same plain wool coat every winter. Clean, pressed, cared for. Just plain. When she passed away, her family discovered she had been quietly sitting on a 7-figure portfolio, built from a teacher's salary and 50 years of patience. A teacher's salary. Nobody, not once, not in any grocery store or parking lot in half a century, looked at her and thought wealthy. And that was not an accident or a sacrifice. That was the strategy. She had opted out of the performance entirely, and the audience never noticed that the quietest person in the room had won the whole game. And here is what is genuinely interesting. The people who actually have money are increasingly doing this on purpose, as a deliberate, named strategy. They call it stealth wealth. You might have seen its fashionable cousin in the headlines: quiet luxury, the logo-free everything. But the deeper version is not a fashion trend. Ask people who manage money for the genuinely rich, and they will tell you the same thing. Their wealthiest clients are routinely the hardest to spot in a room. The estate sale car older than their kids. the 20-year-old watch, the phone 2 generations behind. Why? Why would people who could buy literally anything choose to look like they own nothing special? 3 reasons. And all 3 are worth stealing, no matter what your bank account says today. First, safety. Visible money attracts everything you do not want. Scammers choose targets by what the target displays. Lawsuits find deep pockets that advertise themselves. Thieves shop windows, driveways, and wrists. And beyond crime, visible money attracts softer dangers. Resentment from coworkers, endless requests from distant relatives, friends who arrived right after the money did, and whose affection is priced accordingly. Invisible money attracts none of it. It just sits there in the dark, working, bothering no one. Second, peace. The moment you stop signaling, you exit the race we talked about, completely. No audience to maintain, no image to defend, no flinch when a neighbor upgrades, no recalculating your worth when someone posts a better vacation. People wildly underestimate how much background anxiety their own performance generates until the day they stop performing. The silence in your head is worth more than the leather seats ever were. Third, power. Real, practical, everyday power. The person with 18 months of expenses saved negotiates a raise differently because they can afford the word no. They survive a layoff differently. They leave a toxic job, a bad business deal, a wrong city differently. Money you have not spent is stored courage. Money you converted into appearances is courage you handed to a dealership so that strangers at red lights would respect you for 6 seconds. That is the actual trade. 6 seconds of a stranger's respect, priced in years of your freedom. Now, before you run off and embrace the strategy, let me kill a misunderstanding that ruins it for a lot of people. Looking poor does not mean looking neglected. This is not about dirty clothes, broken shoes, skipping haircuts, or pretending to struggle. Remember the school teacher's coat? Plain and spotless. Stealth wealth is clean, simple, maintained, and quiet. There is a universe of difference between a person who cannot afford better and a person who simply declined to perform. The rule was never look bad. The rule is stop signaling. Buy quality. Keep it forever. Keep it clean. Skip the logo. You are not aiming to look like you lost the game. You are aiming to look like you are not playing because you are busy winning a different one. So how do you actually run this in real life? Here is the Quiet Wealth Playbook. 5 rules, all of them boring, all of them brutally effective, and every one of them is something you can start this week. Rule 1. Buy the 5-year-old car and drive it for 10. Someone else already paid the cruelest depreciation, the half of the value that evaporates in the early years. Buy reliable, pay cash if you possibly can, maintain it properly, and let the $750 payment that now never exists become your portfolio's monthly salary. If anyone judges your car, run the math on what their judgment pays you. $400,000 over 20 years? You can endure a smirk for $400,000. Rule 2, the invisibility test. Before any significant purchase, ask yourself one question. Would I still buy this if no one could ever see it? Not your coworkers, not your family, not the feed. No one, ever. If the answer is yes, it might be worth it. Buy it for you. If the answer is no, you are not buying a product. You are renting an audience. Put it back. This single question, asked honestly, dismantles most status spending on the spot because most status spending has no answer to it. Rule 3. Pay your invisible self first. The performing version of you wakes up every morning ready to spend, so move the money before that version gets a vote. Automate a transfer into investments for the same day your paycheck lands, even if it starts small. The entire mechanical trick of wealth is making the invisible number grow faster than the visible ones, and automation wins that fight by removing the daily negotiation entirely. You cannot lose an argument you never have. Rule 4. upgrade in private. This strategy is not about deprivation, it is about redirecting. Spend real money, generously, where it compounds for you and is visible to no one. Your mattress. You spend a third of your life on it. Your health, training, food, checkups. The highest return asset you own is your own functioning body, your tools and your skills, the things that raise your income quietly. The wealthy spend plenty. They spend on things that make them stronger, not on things that make strangers clap. Audit your last 10 purchases and sort them into those two columns. The ratio will tell you your future. Rule 5. Shrink your audience to 1. The only person whose opinion of your money should carry weight is the version of you sitting 10 years from now. Every financial decision you make today is a message to that person, either a gift or a bill. Most people spend their entire lives impressing strangers they will never see again and mailing the invoice to their own future self. Flip it. Make the strangers irrelevant and the future self rich. That is the entire reorientation in one sentence. And when you run this playbook, something happens that never makes it into the thumbnails. The money becomes real. The $400,000 is genuinely sitting there compounding. But the money is not the best part. The best part is who you become while it grows. People who make this switch describe the same transformation, almost word for word. Calmer, harder to impress, less afraid of Mondays. Because 18 months of runway in the bank rewires how you walk into every room, every meeting, every negotiation, every Monday. The looking rich crowd needs the room's approval to feel okay. Their entire identity is outsourced to an audience. You will not need the room. You will know your number, the room will know nothing, and that asymmetry, quiet certainty on the inside, total invisibility on the outside, is what actual wealth feels like from the driver's seat. It does not feel like chrome wheels. It feels like exhaling. So, tomorrow morning when you walk past that parking garage on level 2, you will see the whole scene differently. The gloss black sedan, the badge, the chrome. You will see the payment behind it, the insurance behind that, the $400,000 that will never exist, and the invisible audience that must be fed forever just to keep the costume on. And the faded Civic 3 spots down with the library book on the passenger seat will finally look like what it always was. A person who figured it out. Looking rich is keeping people broke. Looking ordinary, calmly, deliberately, spotlessly ordinary, is how ordinary people quietly end up rich. If this video flipped something in your head, here is your homework, and it takes 10 minutes. Calculate your net worth this week. Everything you own minus everything you owe. The honest number, that is your real scoreboard, and you should know it. Then, tell me in the comments, what is the most expensive thing you ever bought just to be seen? I will go first in the pinned comment. And if you want one breakdown like this every week, where we cut through how money actually works, no costumes, no performance, subscribe and turn on notifications. Your future self is the only audience that matters. Start performing for them.